Traders, how are you? With Marcello, traveling, no energy because there's been rolling blackouts all throughout the United States. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. Let's get the fro going. Let's get started. So overall, biggest piece of news this week is the storm that's hitting us. 240 million Americans, or 3/4 of the entire country, are suffering rolling blackouts for the Christmas season. I even had trouble flying yesterday into the U.S. Huge problems with the airlines and everything. I hope you guys are safe. I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. It's another year. Get out there, get that money. So today we're going to be doing the recap of the markets, as I mentioned to you guys in the beginning. Overall this week, not a whole lot of news, a little bit light on news due to the fact that we had the situation with obviously Christmas. But we do have a few things that are affecting the markets, and even Elon Musk, for example, has lost $100 billion since the beginning of the year. Markets in the US, mostly negative. The S&P 500 has suffered its biggest annual decline since 2008. Stocks this week broke a 4-day losing streak, with even the Bank of Japan, which is, remember, Japan, the 4th largest economy in the world, surprised investors on raising the cap on the benchmark rate, meaning that the central bank raised interest rates in Japan. If you guys don't know, Japan is one of those countries that has been doing QE, or money printing, to help the economy for about 20, 30 years. Don't quote me on that, but just decades. And it's very surprising for them to do that because they have been stimulating their economy by this funny money business central bank just creating money out of thin air that we've been doing for the last decade in the rest of the world. So that was very surprising due to the fact that Japan normally has a very loose monetary policy, let's say, which is one of the big pieces of news for the week. According to Bespoke Group, the January highs to Tuesday morning, so the January highs of this year all the way to Tuesday morning, the markets have lost a total of $11.7 trillion in market cap. The biggest losers are $5 trillion in the biggest technological companies. We're talking Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, which is Facebook, Alphabet, which is Google, Microsoft, and Tesla. But overall for the week, most of the stocks in the U.S. were negative, with the Dow being the exception at 0.86% positive. Even Canada was positive as well. Tough year for U.S. stocks. Market disruption is far from over with the new recession hitting in 2023, supposedly. Let me get my notes here. Give me 1 second. Overseas market news. The equities, or the stocks in India, were the best part of the year. They had the best performing stock market overall in the world. This has mainly to do with a lot of companies transitioning out of China. So with the zero COVID policy and then the situation with the supply chains, a lot of companies have been bringing a lot of their manufacturing home, in addition to looking to other places, for example, like India, which is one of the reasons India doesn't have a zero COVID policy, for example, which China does. So they're not literally shutting down cities with millions of people just because there's one case, for example, of the thing with the pandemic. I'm not going to say it again so they won't ban the channel again. The Nifty 50 in India struck a record high in December, and overall it's up 5% for the year. European markets are mostly mixed, with Istanbul and London at the forefront of the most positive. And then in Latin America, Argentina winning the World Cup. Messi, you deserve it. Now we gotta listen to them for 40 years. I was gonna say a joke that I said in Spanish, but I couldn't put it together. So Argentina, biggest positive of all Latin America, almost 14% positive. That's the effect that the World Cup has on the country that literally has nothing except the football team. Africa and the Middle East, Egypt is the biggest loser at just over 4.5%, even though overall they were mostly mixed. And then in Asia and the far east, all the markets were mostly lower as well. Another big piece of news in the crypto space, moving to Bitcoin and crypto, the bankruptcy and the continuation of the savagery, if that's a word in English, is continuing, as now the biggest Bitcoin miner in the world has filed for bankruptcy. So you can see that it's the carnage is continuing quite a bit. And this is what I always told you guys about Bitcoin. Most of the people that I know, because Bitcoin's kind of in the finance space, yeah, they made a lot of money in the beginning, but now they literally have lost it all because they re-leveraged themselves with a lot of the shit coins and everything. So it's not that you can't make money in crypto, but it's what I always told you guys. I don't think the future is crypto. I think the future is blockchain, especially with all the government coins coming out. But if you are going to get into that market, just be careful because it's not regulated. And hopefully you didn't have your money in FTX, which is the second largest exchange in the world. So Bitcoin and Ethereum substantially lower for the year. Bitcoin is down 63%, while Ethereum is down 67%. Both cryptos are on pace for the worst year since 2018. Cryptos for the week inched higher after the SBF, which is the co-founder and the CEO of FTX, was extradited to the United States. And on bail, he paid $250 million for bail. Remember, he said that he didn't have any money because he only had $100,000 left. Do you guys remember that? So there's definitely going to be some funny business probably there. Just remember, he didn't kill himself. FTX founder, I don't have my buttons to give you the conspiracy Marcello this week. The Caroline Ellison and Gary Wang, which are some of his co-conspirators, are working with the feds. They're pleading guilty, and obviously it's coming out now that they knew what they were doing, just stealing money from their customers, basically. And overall, Bitcoin is higher for the week, up 0.39% to just under 17,000. Commodities, Christmas meals and food is up 16.4% in the Biden economy. Vegetable prices have surged 38% in 1 month, so don't let them tell you that the inflation is actually coming down, because in reality, everything is continuing to go up. The overall inflation, I think, will probably start going up again, I would say, in 2 or 3 months from now. So we're talking maybe March or April, because they did just sign another $1.7 trillion budget. The inflation that we're seeing now is due to the fact that we've had this largest lifestyle since 2008 and 2009. We just literally keep printing money, and then we had the lowest interest rates, not only in the history of the US, but in the history of the world. So now they're doubling down on the amount of dollars, right? And it's not just the left, it's the right. It's both parts of government. What I always say, and this is why big government is bad, is that they're both driving the car off the cliff, just one's driving slower than the other. So hope you're getting prepared, because what's coming is going to be heavy. In addition to that, the Earth's magnetic field is weakening between Africa and South America, causing a lot of satellites and spacecraft to malfunction. I don't talk about this a lot since I first started mentioning to you that in 2020, I think the whole decade of the 20s, or the next 8 years now, are going to be a lot of problems with environment. We're going to have a lot of disasters. We're going to have a lot of economic problems, a lot of social problems. And if you didn't know, the North Pole is literally moving from where it was kind of in the North Pole, north of Canada, all the way to Russia. It's been moving about 5 to 7 miles per month, and it's literally almost in Russia. So that's causing a lot of problems with the magnetosphere, which is what supposedly protects us from the solar winds and from the damage from the sun. That's why Mars, for example, is going to be difficult to colonize there, because they don't have an atmosphere. CDC is saying that the life expectancy in the United States is at a 25-year low. This is mostly due to the fentanyl drug overdoses, due to the open border. Ton of people dying because of that. Hopefully you don't know anybody that has, because that's a really unfortunate situation. Europe is dealing with a $1 trillion extra bill for their energy in the deepest crisis in decades due to the situation with Russia and the war with Ukraine. The relief isn't going to happen quickly, as the extra capacity from Qatar and the United States isn't supposed to come online until 2026. Luckily this year, though, they're having a much milder winter, meaning a much warmer winter than normal. So we have a warmer winter in Europe, while we have literally record low temperatures in the United States, which kind of makes you question the whole climate change thing, right? What we're seeing, I think, is more of extremes, which has to do with other conspiracy theories I might talk about another day. European nat gas posted the biggest weekly decline since September, driven by mild weather. Crude oil prices have went up for the second straight week. Crude is up over 7% to 79.56, while Brent is up 6.17% to 83.92. And lumber, with the collapse of the housing market, is down over 67% in 2022, on track for its worst year since 1979. Remember that construction and the housing market is about an average of 17% of the economy, so that's going to be quite a big hit. 2023, Goldman Sachs, which is a bank broker in the United States, probably, if not the most influential in the U.S., the most influential in the world. They're saying that the cost of copper is going to reach a record high of 11,000 per ton. The stores, meaning the storage of copper, is at dangerously low rates. And we're at just 4.9 days on production earlier this year. And now we're supposed to get to just 2.7 days of storage by year end. And if you guys didn't know, copper not only is the main component in things like plumbing or electricity, but also in green energy tech like the batteries and the EV production. Gold is up 0.30 to 1,799. Silver, as you guys know, my favorite market, up 2.18% to 2382. And then the financial and banking news, Japan has their core inflation, which doesn't include energy and food, at a 40-year high. And that was the surprising thing about the policy rate. As I mentioned to you guys before, their government has just been spending money left and right to try to stimulate the economy instead of doing the right things. And they're starting to reverse course now to be able to try to hone in inflation, because obviously inflation is something that's happening all over the world. In political news, dramatic elections for leftist communists in Brazil, Chile, and Colombia have brought leftist policies and governments to power in Latin America in 2022. We'll see how that happens now, since the economy isn't supposed to do well if the people decide to vote for somebody else. In economic news, the GDP of China grew only 3% this year, which is half what they have been accustomed to. They normally grow about 6, 7, 8, 9%, if you believe the numbers coming out of China. The United States has grown 3.2%, which means that in the third quarter, the U.S. actually grew faster than China, which is surprising because the U.S. is already an industrialized or a more advanced nation when it comes to the economy, while China is still in its baby phase, let's say. And the UK contracted more than thought in quarter three. So now the UK, which if I'm not mistaken is the 6th largest economy in the world after India, is the worst performing G7 nation in the entire world. Corporate news, Disney shares have fallen almost 5% after they didn't sell as much as they thought they were with Avatar 2. Avatar 2 now is the most expensive movie ever made, and the director James Cameron said that it needs to get to at least $2 billion in sales to be able to just break even and make a profit. Meta Platforms, which is Facebook, went down over 4% after the EU filed a complaint, and they're going to start investigating their practices between the social media of Facebook and the marketplace. If they do or are found guilty, they might have to pay 10% of its annual global revenue. So we're talking about $11.8 billion that they might have to pay. That's on top of already agreeing to pay $725 million to settle a lawsuit that accused the social network of allowing third parties to access users' private data. So Zuckerberg is an a-hole. Moving on, shares of Nike went up over 12% on better than expected earnings and sales. Their revenue went up by over 5.9%, what was expected. And shares of Tesla, Elon Musk is no longer the richest man in the world. He's lost $100 billion in wealth since the beginning of January. The stock of Tesla has gone down another almost 9% on Thursday. And a lot of people are saying that it's because they're not focusing, he's doing the whole Twitter thing. And he's just sold another round of shares. I believe it was let me look at my notes here. It doesn't say the exact amount, but he sold $40 billion of shares. He just sold another handful of billions last week, and he said to everybody that he's not going to sell anymore after telling everybody before that he wasn't going to sell anymore. So not doing great for Elon Musk. Taiwan Semiconductor, which is the world's most valuable semiconductor company and largest independent manufacturer, is looking to build the first plant in Dresden, Germany. They're also looking, if I'm not mistaken, to build a plant in the United States in Arizona, which will be good because that'll help with the supply chain issues. In technology, there's a company called Madrigal Pharmaceuticals that went up over 268% on Monday after they had good results after testing a drug that would help with advanced liver scarring. First of its kind ever. Investment news, China is planning on scrapping the quarantine requirements for overseas travelers next month to mainland China. So you're no longer have to do the butt swab, the nose swab, and all that stuff. You're going to be able to arrive and you only have to do a 3-day health monitoring, which is good because remember, everything is made in China, including babies. And I already told you guys that 240 million people, two-thirds of the entire United States is under extreme weather on Friday. Here where I'm at, power went out. There's rolling blackouts throughout the entire United States, and we're most likely going to continue to see this happening. So get your generator on. Where's my, video guys? Put in the conspiracy Marcello there. And in unusual facts this week, Bernard Arnault, which is the French magnate, which owns 48% of the company that owns Christian Dior, Louis Vuitton, Fendi, all this stuff. He now is the richest man in the world. And Bill Gates amassed nearly 270,000 acres of farmland across the United States. Just to put that into perspective, there's 900 million acres of agricultural land. And there's another billionaire that has actually scooped up 2.2 million acres. And that is former CEO of AT&T. The name here is John Malone. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. And remember, the preppers were right. See you next week.